Keep it all coming as we introduce to you an all-female panelist who will be talking about the success stories of international students. First off, this lady completed two higher education qualifications in Australia and has used this along with her ability to network and form connections to create a career in digital learning. Please welcome Hope Dolino.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaden. Hi, Kim. All right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Hope, and I am excited to share to you my story today. I prepared a mini presentation for you. It's more of a photo dump, I should say. It's a compilation of my experiences over the years because I really want to show you, our international students, what I'd refer to as my own story of resilience. All the joys and pains that comes along being an international student. My no BS story of success in my own terms. So, in my story, you will find how my volunteering, my work experiences, and my passions all pieced together, and eventually it led me to where I am now. In my 7 years in Australia, I think I only missed like two MISC conferences. This was me in MISC in 2014 and 2015. I was mostly a delegate and I even joined one of the pitch competitions. I didn't win, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience anyway. If you told me then that I would be presenting as a speaker in 2021, I would have laughed at you. But here we are. Life has interesting ways of unfolding events and leading you towards your calling. If you've had a look at my bio, you would have seen that I arrived in Australia in 2014. I completed my master's with distinction, started working full-time after that, received my PR, and in 2019, I became an Australian citizen. And now I work as a programs manager, managing our Victoria and South Australia programs for thousands of students. Now, if you hear just that, you might think and say, that's a success story. But what makes one successful anyway? How do you define success? For me, it's not that at all. I'm proud of these achievements, yes, but anyone could reach the same milestones if you have clear goals in mind and, of course, do the hard work. These were my goals then. I needed to achieve them so I could do what I love to do now continuously. What makes me successful, based on my own definition of success, is being able to utilize whatever I have and whoever I am now to support others in their own journeys, and seeing other people's goals come to fruition as I continue to evolve and aim for greater heights myself. Now, just before I delve further into my passions, let's first talk about how I started. And you will find my story very relatable to many international students who, number one, you came to Australia as a full-paying international student. Two, again, if you have aspirations of wanting to stay post-studies. And three, if you have a lot of self-doubt and uncertainty because you might think that you are not good enough or that external forces are just against your favor, whether that be matters regarding your visa, the pandemic, whatever. All right, so let me take you on a walk down memory lane with me. In 2014, I attended my very first orientation day at Victoria University, and I was inspired by the student panel who shared their experiences. And I said to myself, what a wonderful opportunity to inspire new students and guide them. I want to be a part of that. When I see something that inspires me, my brain just lights up and says, I have to be a part of that. What do I need to do? That's one of the first things I would encourage you to start doing if you want to gain more exposure. Be inspired, find opportunities, and get involved. So I did that, and straight after my first semester, I signed up to be a volunteer. I didn't even know that volley meant volunteer then. I thought it was the name of the club or the brand. I did not know nor understand a lot of things then. I just knew that I needed to start somewhere. Here's a photo of me in 2014 when I was new to volunteering. Imagine how proud I was to flaunt my volleys cap. And by the way, when people tell you to live in the moment and not bother about taking photos, don't listen to them. Take as much photos and keep them and treasure them as your memories. I could not describe the sense of fulfillment and how gratifying it was scrolling through my feeds because while I was preparing for this, because I was reminded of my own humble beginnings. Again, not that I have gone far, but my younger self 7 years ago, I'm sure would be proud of who I am now. Notice though that I said who and not where I am now, because I still have a very long way to go. In this event, I put my hand up to join a team of volleys to do community work in Footscray. I even took a photo of my arm full of cuts from the weeds that I pulled out as a remembrance. I was not expecting to be awarded a certificate of leadership from that experience. I was not initially appointed as team leader. I can't recall exactly what happened on the day. I just remember that it felt good to be acknowledged for something that I did. And I felt that I was genuinely part of the community. And that pretty much holds true for this experience because I had this sense of fulfillment from this unexpected recognition. I appreciated that and I was enticed to keep doing what I've already started. So, needless to say, I went on to volunteer for multiple events at VU, which was my first university, and I became an experienced greeter during orientation and many other student events. I enjoyed that very much. This started my passion in student services. When I moved to Monash to pursue my second master's, I was still volunteering at VU as an alumna while I was doing the same things at Monash as I began my own journey there as well. I also started being a peer mentor and organizing small events. At this time, I was already heavily involved in volunteering. I signed up for every opportunity there was, and I started volunteering for more and more organizations, which causes I cared for. I started doing a lot of work for the Salvation Army, assisting in programs for international students, serving food to the homeless, collecting donations, strolling Melbourne streets at night to provide assistance to Melburnians who might be in distress, and many others. Oops. So as I gained more exposure and my confidence developed over time, I went from being a volunteer who initially did not understand what she was doing to taking up more leadership roles. I started training other student volunteers, organizing bigger activities, and taking on more responsibilities. I was not great at all of them, and in fact, I failed several times, which taught me things I needed to work on, especially with how to become a more effective and compassionate leader. I started to realize the things I really wanted to do, the things that I cared for, and the things I was good at. So by this time, I was already a serial student volunteer. I was volunteering, attending leadership programs while attending uni, and working various odd jobs morning till night. And in fact, here's what my typical day looked like as an international student. I would do various paid jobs, volunteer, do my uni assignments, and work and volunteer even more in between during the day. Not exactly in the same order, of course, but yes, this was my life. What I need students to understand is your grades are important, but your real world experiences are much more valuable. You need to get out of your shell so you would develop skills and expand your networks. People used to ask me, did you have a life hope? How did you manage to fit them all in? And yes, it was tough, but sometimes I wish I could go back because it was the most enjoyable time I've had here in Australia. My best friends to date are the ones that I met during volunteering. I have an Indian girlfriend who has spent my last 7 birthdays consistently, year after year, celebrating my birthday with me at midnight. That's how loyal of a friend she is. I have another Latina girlfriend who we have supported each other through the years, through our ups and downs. My mentors are my friends who continue to inspire and challenge me to keep growing, all because we are like-minded people. And what a beautiful place that is to start and build your own community from there. I am saying this because as international students, please do not get caught up with your studies alone or just by trying to make ends meet and keep working. Learn to enjoy your life in Australia in whatever way possible because you can. I, for myself, I enjoy hosting and dancing. So I made these two talents and interests of mine as part of my volunteering to host events and run dance workshops for free while engaging with culturally and linguistically diverse communities. In a way, I was developing my confidence, my skills, gaining more exposure, meeting new people, and I could have fun and share joy to others. You can have an enjoyable international student life, for example, in volunteering if you are open to experiencing new things and if you come from a place of giving and really wanting to be part of the community. Consider volunteering not as a task and something you tick on your resume, but step into it with an open mind and heart so you would really enjoy the experience and reap its numerous benefits. So by now, you know that I loved volunteering. Volunteering was my way to have fun and make friends. It became my sweet escape from the pressures of my studies and where to find funds to pay my next semester fees. Now remember, I was studying social work. Here's some photos of my two placements in youth services and in alcohol and drugs and counseling with my different supervisors. It matters to me that wherever I go, that I do not only do well, as you would have seen in my volunteering experiences, but that I also invest in the relationships with the people I work with. And it is not only even because networking is important, but I genuinely believe that working could be much more enjoyable if you have good working relationships with people around you. Work hard and be good to people. That has always been my mantra in life. Be someone you would want to work with and make people remember you for all the right reasons. So we've talked about volunteering and my placement experiences. So I now have heaps of local experience in student services and social work while I'm an international student. All my experiences have enabled me to have a better understanding of who I am as an individual and as a leader. It is my hope that you would start thinking, what lessons can I draw from Hope's story? What can I do so I can maximize whatever opportunities I have? Or maybe I could create those opportunities myself. Now let's talk a bit about some of the jobs that I've done, which will highlight this time a totally different area. Why I want to feature this? Because you will start to see patterns of how I work, what are the things that I value most, how I think, and how my mindset has allowed me to develop a range of skills and more. This time, you will see the importance of transferable skills and growing your networks. My jobs as a student then were not the most glamorous, but I loved them. And I'm proud of working jobs that were not easy. Because why would I want easy jobs anyway? Those would have bored me. I loved variety. These were some of my jobs then. Jobs that initially, as I described them, nobody wanted to do. I was a student volunteer. This allowed me to really develop my interpersonal skills. I enjoyed the free foods, the goodies, the free tickets that came along working for various brands, even if sometimes that meant they would butcher my surname to Domino. I learned how to talk and connect with people, especially from various backgrounds. I needed to, else they would not take my pamphlets or buy what I was selling. One of my fondest realizations when I was handing out flyers is Filipinos would take anything that's free, even if it's an empty bag, because the bag itself is free. I have permission to make fun of us because I find it quite amusing being Filipino myself. I started as a promoter handing out flyers, encouraging people to sign up for promos and stuff. Then the next time the events would run, I would already be the team leader. I was now flying to Sydney to manage teams. Then eventually, I became a contractor, and this became my side hustle. Companies would call me based on referrals if they needed promoters, and I would be paid to hire and train. Until such a time, I decided I wanted to pass this on to the students I recruited so they could start contracting themselves. I taught them how to do that so they could start earning much more on their own. It is the last part that I am proudest. I was also an on-call staff for Hoban Recruitment. Whatever customer service job there was, they would call me. I would be working during major Melbourne events, AFL, New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, Mumba, giving directions, doing crowd control. Imagine a 5'3" yelling to the crowds to go in one direction as the roads are blocked. And I enjoyed those very much. It was not easy, but it was very fun. Hence, I also have this very huge respect and appreciation for our international students, those cleaning our trams, our trains, those at bus replacement stops, giving instructions to people, those doing food deliveries and cleaning jobs and more. Please be kind to them. It is not easy work. Everyone's trying to earn a decent living while completing their studies. I would have shifts before where I would finish at 3 in the morning and I wouldn't know how to get back to the city. But my colleagues were my friends, so we were all helping each other. And the same thing, I would start from the bottom. The next event that runs, I am already in the front line, leading and training others. Not only because I had the prior experience, there's many of us who have done it before, but because people remember you for your good work. These are just two of the many jobs I've done while at uni. I also worked as a casual student staff both at VU and Monash, which also contributed to getting my job in EdTech as a coordinator easier, even if I was a social work graduate, again, because of my transferable skills. I hope by now you can already see some patterns of how I see and treat opportunities that come my way. My range of experiences makes me confident that I can get into various fields if I will ever need to. I invest in myself by developing skills from all experiences I venture into, as well as I invest heavily on my relationships with people. When you work, make sure you give your 100% and you treat people well. Again, work hard and be good to people. Be the person you would want to work with. Be the person you would want to hire. So now let's talk about my current role. Who is Hope now? This is what you will see me doing. My typical day looks like this, including the many spreadsheets and emails, of course. This is my job: mentoring and coaching, facilitation, and program management. I landed this role because I was referred to our director by one of the ladies I used to volunteer for. Did that volunteer activity have anything to do with this job or with EdTech? No. Would my current boss have known me if I was not referred to her by this person? No. Would I have met this person who referred me if I was also not introduced to her by one of my mentors who I also volunteer with? Also no. And do you think that I would have been referred in the first place if I had a reputation of not doing a good job and not being of good character? I also don't think so. Our communities are small, and what goes around comes around. So think of it this way. This is how networking works. Rather than asking for a job, think, what can you give? How can you start giving while waiting for the right opportunities to come? How can you improve on your character and build skills while you are looking for a job? That's right, my friends. Get to work and prove your worth. So now you know my story, the skills I've developed over volunteering and working various jobs, as well as the networks I've gained. Let's glue them all together. What I love Why I love what I do as a programs manager and as a residential advisor is because I am able to see the impact of my work on the students we serve. I am able to bridge my passion in serving others and use my skills to deliver what I would like to think is quality work because I am fueled with passion. And since I have been well exposed and now skilled in program management, coaching, mentoring, training, and facilitation across my experiences, I've always operated from a place that it is never enough to just get the job done. A job needs to be done well. And I'm able to utilize my social work training and the empowerment models I've learned using a strengths based approach so we can guide our participants to realize their full potential. You just need opportunities to start somewhere, as I did myself. I am proud to be able to represent the international student community, that I am able to facilitate building a community of people who support one another, finding and giving people a platform to showcase their skills, to continue building on their professional skills and personal development as well, including in my own personal capacity, mentoring others who seek my assistance. By doing this, which by the way is something I have learned from my mentors, is we encourage others to do the same organically, to pass on the magic of mentoring and providing opportunities to others when they are in a much better position themselves in the future. This is how we will thrive as a community. My biggest treasures and measurement of success is when I hear back from students that they have landed jobs or they are in a better place because of the guidance or opportunities that I or we once provided. Okay, so as I'm about to wrap up, a lot of my experiences were obviously done face to face, but please do not ever think that relationships cannot be built virtually. This is our new world and we will all have to adapt. Whatever lessons you took from my story, all can be translated and experienced in the digital space as well. Here are my main points for you to take away from my experiences. One, to succeed as an international student, be well-rounded. Do good in your studies, but do not forget to explore the outside world and take part in it. Volunteer, engage in work. Two, engage in your community and be genuinely interested in contributing and learning. Be open to different opportunities and reflect as you go which activities are working for you, which ones aren't. Find and follow your passion. 3, be a generalist, but also a specialist in one or two things. That way, you have a unique selling proposition. 4, invest in relationships. Make people remember you and want to work with you again. How can you do that? Come from a place of giving, not a transactional relationship of, I do this for you if you do this for me mindset. It does not breed of healthy, thriving relationships. And lastly, number 5, success is only sweet when shared. Remember to lift people up with you as you rise yourself. And don't forget the people who've helped you reach where you are now. That's it for me. I hope my story has shed a bit of light and hope and inspiration to many of our international students here and abroad. Thank you very much, and I wish you all well.
Thank you so much, Hope. It's been a pleasure to hear about your journey. I really feel hopeful as an international student. So we'll look forward to opening our Q&A later. So delegates, please type your questions for Hope into the chat, and we will come back to them later at the end of this session. So next off the list is Luni Gan, who came to Australia as an undergraduate and has since moved back to Malaysia and founded her own business, as well as become one of Malaysia's first Facebook certified digital marketers. Luni?
Hello. Hey everyone, it's Luni here. So yeah, let me share my screen with y'all. Awesome. So really excited to be here today and to share my journey with you guys. So I'm Luni Gan, and a bit about myself. So I am a UniMelb graduate. I actually moved to Melbourne for studies in 2015 and came back to Malaysia last year, right during the pandemic. So I used to work in a digital marketer in Crown Casino, Melbourne. And like what Kimberly was saying, when I came back to Malaysia last year, I started my own digital marketing company called Panther Rocket, and we specialize in Facebook ads and chatbot marketing. So in Malaysia, we build property chatbots for clients and have generated more than 3 million online sales for them. And I'm also one of the first batch of Facebook certified trainers in Malaysia. So I guess very similar to everyone here, I was an international student in Australia. And to be very honest, I've never thought I'll end up where I am right now. So back in uni, I think I've always dreamt about, I think all internationals, we feel that that pressure of getting a full-time job after university, or it's very tough getting a job in our profession or what we like upon graduation. So I've always dreamt about, getting in a big media agency like Dentsu or IPG in Australia, or just climbing the corporate ladder in Melbourne. But I've never really thought where I'll get to where I am now, although I'm happy with where I am. And so I just thought that I'll share 3 things I've learned throughout this journey. And hopefully it helps to be a bit more insightful, because I think that moving back to Malaysia, back then, I always felt that the worst case scenario is that, okay, you move back home. That's the same for a lot of you guys. You might have that in mind, but sometimes this might not be the worst case scenario, and it might work out pretty well, which is what I'm experiencing now as well. So yeah, for me, the first thing that's really important is really just to say yes to opportunities. So if you think about it, all along, be it through university or even when you're working, you're volunteering, there's so many opportunities out there, and you may be thinking, how do I get hold of them, or how do I know that they're there? A lot of times opportunities aren't opportunities until you actually keep an eye for them. What it really meant is that a lot of times when we set goals, that's when opportunities become a lot more obvious to us. And a good example is that, let's say when you get a new car, you get a new red Camry, and suddenly everyone on the road seems to be driving a red Camry. And it's just because that when you have your eyes set on somewhere, suddenly everything around you, it pops up. So having that goals, an end goal in mind, that's really important to help you to keep an eye. And also your mind, for me, my mindset is always let's try it, let's give it a go. And who knows where it will be, where it will lead us. So in my first year, I actually joined Melt Magazine as a journalist. And a bit of a backstory. So back in Malaysia, I came from a Chinese secondary school. What this means is that English was never my first language. But when I went to uni, I did arts, so Bachelor of Arts, majoring in media comms in UniMelt. And in Bachelor of Arts, it's a 80-90% Caucasian class. And I remember like in my first day, I am extrovert, but I didn't speak a single word just because I was terrified. Like it was very intimidating. I wasn't sure what to say. And my writing sucks in English. So I remember in my first writing assignment, I got like a H2B, which is essentially like a B or C. And I was quite disappointed. But then I told myself that, okay, I'm going to get better in this. And that's where I joined Melt Magazine. I applied. I remember Hugh was there. Karen was there during that time. And that's where I really get exposed to a lot more writing opportunities. And it's surprising, but all of this journalism experience really helped when I was applying for jobs after, because when they're looking for writing experience, copywriting, or like just having a portfolio on its own, that really helps a lot. And then later on, in my last year, I actually went for an exchange in Texas, in the United States. And again, that was mind-blowing. And you always think that, like, you know, like my parents, even then, they didn't really want me to go because they felt like, okay, you're already overseas. Why do you want to go on an exchange again? But I really wanted to. And I just grab hold of whatever opportunity I can, save that, work a lot to be able to afford as well. And in a sense that what's so mind-blowing about this is that a lot of times, when you say yes to opportunities, you're thrown to the unknown. Like when I went to the States, I literally know no one. It was scary, but it was also very exciting. And one thing that shocked me the most was that when I was in the States, there were so many different people around me. And being Asian, I felt like a lot of times we have our own standards, like beauty standards, for instance. I have single eyelids, and I always thought that, okay, I'll only be more beautiful if, you know, you can have big eyes. That's like the beauty standards in Asian standards. But when I get there and I told my friends about how I was thinking about an eyelid surgery, they were shocked, like legit. They were like, why would you do that? And that really made me realize that, okay, a lot of times it's just, I guess, certain things that we're used to or we're brought up with that we think that should be how we're thinking. But even things like, you know, going to the beach and we get tan, and as Chinese, people say that, you know, you gotta be fair to be pretty. And it's just very, very different mindset. And that makes you feel that a lot of times you don't be glued down to a certain mindset that only certain things can work or only certain things will get you there. Because when there's so many different people, so many different ways that can get you somewhere, why just stick with one? So that's why I always value opportunities that way. Another opportunity was when I was back in Melbourne, I started off my first job. Actually, I started off a lot of jobs, but like my first proper full-time was in a B2B agency. And then after that, I got an opportunity to go to Crown Casino. So how this started was also very mind-blowing in a sense. So I actually I got approached by a Crown recruiter on Instagram. I'm not kidding, it's Instagram, because I remember that the recruiter reached out and said that, hey, can you check your DM? And then I checked, and then she wanted to have a coffee catch up because she said that they have a social media opening. So it was a bit weird and was a bit skeptical. At that time, I was side hustling at Pencil Rocket Australia, which at that time we were a video production company who also does marketing for clients. And I thought that, you know, why not? I'll give it a try. I'll go for coffee and I'll pitch our services, and maybe we'll land a big client like Crown. So I went for a coffee catch up with the recruiter. And it turned out to be a really good conversation. She really thinks that I am fit for the role. And I went on to interviews, and I was really surprised, and it was crazy, but I went right in as a digital social media coordinator in Crown. And even in Crown itself, I said yes to so many opportunities that at that point, you might have felt that I can't do it. Because an example would be, so at the start when I went in, I remembered as an international, again, it was a very white culture. Everyone was either local or ABC. And I felt that no one understood me and my accent. Again, it's really about playing with your strengths sometimes and then just saying yes to things that will work. So for me, because my first language is Chinese, so anything that's to do with WeChat or Weibo marketing, I'll say yes. I'll put my hands up and then just go do it, even though at that point I didn't really know what to do. But then after I said yes, then I called up my friend who started a WeChat agency, caught up with her and just tried to learn as much as I can about that. But without saying yes to all these opportunities, sometimes you just never push yourself to that extent. That's why a lot of times the unknown is scary, but the unknown is also really, really exciting. The second point that I always, when I look back and I think what really made me grow and learn so much, is really about choosing the people that you surround yourself with. So there's a quote that says that you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. And honestly, this is what have made me open my eyes so much. So this is my Pencil Rocket team here. In Australia, we are a bunch of international students, but we made the 2 co-founders co-founded business, and we are a whole bunch who make it work. And us being internationals, we know how hard it is to get business or to know people, because we're starting with no connections except for our own. So it's tough, but it's so inspiring to be with a group of people who are in the same boat, and then we really do it together. My housemates here are also some of my best inspiration, because this is my cousin, and she got Dean's List 5 years in a row in the architecture faculty. And looking at her and looking at me as an art grad who doesn't really spend that much time on studies, but just being with her, being around her, makes me feel like, okay, I gotta do more. And this is my Miss group. So I joined Miss as a student, maybe 4 years or 3 years, I can't remember, before. And then I joined it again as organizing committee with Ritika and Anne Lewis, who is still here today. And it's always when you expose yourself with more people, you see how people do things. I remember being so amazed at how they speak to people, how you connect, how you network. It's scary when you do something that you've never done, but being close to them, that aura is just different. This two are some of the friends that I've met in AMSU International, which is University of Melbourne Student Union. And till today, these two are some of my best friends. And in fact, we do these things every Sunday called the Elephants, where we each other accountability partner. And we really just set our life goals together. And every Sunday we'll spend an hour to call, to check in how's everyone's week going, and talk about any problems and help each other, talk through any solutions as well. So these are all the connections, all the friends and all the networks that I've met in uni that really have made me grown so much on a personal level and professional level as well. Because a lot of times when you go and join clubs and societies that relate to you or have the same value as you, that's when you meet a bunch of people who are similar in some ways and are able to inspire you to do so much more. So I remember when I joined AMSU International, which is the Student of Melbourne Student Union, that was, I wanted to join as a community at first, but I thought that, okay, I don't really know if I'm enough, I'm good enough and all that. I got pushed by a senior and just went right in. And then you meet a whole lot of people who are in it together, we hold events together, and you learn so much from them. Same goes with Austin International, which is a startup that we help to facilitate for uni students in their soft skills, technical skills, and we go around in Hong Kong, Singapore, little boot camps. Because if you think about it, when you join, for instance, this conference that you guys are in, people that are in this conference are people like you. They want to be better. They want to do well in Australia. We all want to get jobs upon graduation locally. And these are people with similar mindsets. So it's often times like this where you feel that you, at some point, you're pressured to do better. But I would say a lot more times it's you're inspired to do a lot more. So choose the people you hang out with and be around people that inspire you, because that really brings you places. The last point is that I think it's really important to just do what you can and love, and then the dots will connect in the end. So a lot of times we might think that, why am I doing this? Is this good enough? Why do I feel like I'm not getting where someone else is getting? It's fine. As long as you're enjoying the moment and you remember the end goal that we talked about at the start. So if whatever that you're doing is bringing you closer to the end goal, then just do it and the dots will connect in the end. So similar to Hope, I've done so many different jobs back in Melbourne, starting in Mamak Melbourne. If you guys know, the Malaysian restaurant on Elizabeth Street, I was a waitress there, and that was very fun but very tiring at the same time. I was also selling shoes. I worked in media agency before. I've worked in startup, and at one point I at quite a while. I was juggling 3 jobs at once. So one was for the money, so I can pay my rent. One was for the experience, so I can really convert it into something that it's solid and valuable. And one was just for the hustle and the fun, and that was my side hustle at Pencil Rocket always. And at the same time, I took out opportunities such as Miss, the organizing community, because a lot of times, right, each of this will lead you to different things. A good example is actually, so I've never really thought about personal branding in a way that I'm going to use this to get a job. But because I have always tried hard to build my personal brand, or like to share things, valuable things online on Instagram and on LinkedIn. LinkedIn sharing was where I got my first full-time in Melbourne. My Instagram personal branding and my experience in Pencil Rocket Melbourne was where leads me to my job in Crown Casino. And all of this was never planned out. I never said that, okay, I'm going to do this, I can get there. But because all this while, it's something that I love doing, and it's something that I enjoy, and it's bringing me a lot of experience, I just kept doing it, and it just connected in the end. And same goes with, like, when I talk about Pencil Rocket. So it's always a side hustle, meaning that I always had a full time. So I worked on it after hours or like on weekends, and I never get to meet clients. More of the behind the scenes job of creating content and like building ads and all that. But if without Pencil Rocket, I would never have gotten my full-time in Crown, because of course they were asking for experience in the digital marketing role. They wanted to know what sort of ads have you built, what's the metrics that you looked at, things like that. You wouldn't be able to tell without having that experience. And without this, I would never have started a business in Malaysia either, because when I came back to Malaysia right during pandemic, it was pretty scary, because like I was about to start a business and I actually almost got COVID. But I felt like, okay. Sorry, I was lost connection for a while. But yeah, like, like all of this experience, they really lead you to places that you wouldn't know. But what's important to note is that as long as, remember, like Hope talked about this as well, as long as you're continuously giving value, that's what's most important. You're giving value when you're talking to people, when you're connecting, when you're networking. And a lot of times don't feel that because we're international, there's nothing much we can contribute. Because like what I talk about in Crown, yes, I'm an international, but I have very strong background in Chinese, and that's where I can really excel in WeChat and Weibo, and all my colleagues got me to proofread their Chinese copy, even though I'm not as good as they think maybe. But that is where you really just try to leverage on what you have and just give as much value as you can, and be kind, because it all connects in the end. And I have one last point, which is super relevant to the pandemic. It's just that sometimes we just gotta go with the flow. So why I say so is because I actually never thought I'll start a business back in my hometown in Borneo. So where I am now is Kuching Sarawak, Malaysia. It's not even it's not even our capital city, Kuala Lumpur. I came back because of various reasons. My boyfriend, I've been doing LDR with long distance, my boyfriend for almost 6 years now. My family's here and I'm quite family oriented. And yeah, that's what brought me back. But I never thought I'll be in Kuching, Sarawak, in Borneo. I always thought that I'll be starting the business in KL, because there's going to be more demand there, and more, no one's going to appreciate digital marketing in a smaller city. But I got here during pandemic, so I was stuck home. And I just went with the flow. So I chilled out a bit, transitioned into getting home, and then slowly realized that because of the pandemic, there was actually a growing demand for digital marketing. And so I just started doing it. So a lot of times there's only so much that we can estimate, or we think that we can predict, but we just got to go with the flow. So in the past year, we've done a lot of shoots. We've gotten clients from in hotels, from masks to bakeries, and really build the business and build the team, which is, it's really not within my expectations. I never expected it to go this way, to start off here in my hometown. And when we started, it was just me in my bedroom doing everything on the desk. And then when I first secured my 2 clients, and I was like, okay, I need help. And that's where I hired my first 2 interns. And till today, we have a team of almost 10 of us. Some of them are full-timers, some of them are part-timers, and a lot of them were with me from the very, very start. And it's quite mind-blowing to think about that, because it's really nothing that I expected. And with pandemic, there's a lot of things that we can't just expect and predict, but it's fine. It's fine because you just go with the flow again. The dots will connect in the end. So this is our team currently. And yeah, this is my story. So hopefully it sheds a bit of light and insights of some of clients that we've worked with. But all in all, I just want to say that, a lot of time just go for things if you think that it's for you. Like I really like this quote where it says that you miss 100% of the shots that were not taken. So just give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't. What's the worst case scenario? But if it does, that's great for you. And go with the flow, because a lot of times, even as internationals, you are so much more than you believe yourself. And yeah, that's all from me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Luni. It was so impressive going from starting out volunteering to starting your own business in so little time. Last but not the least, Marky feels Restrepo have a career in marketing in Latin America, but decided she needed a change. She came to Australia to study a master degree and transit into a career in health promotion. Welcome.
Hi all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me share my screen. Oops. Just give me 1 second. It's not working. Very 2021. Give me 1 second. Sorry. I need a bit of tech support here because it's not working. I'm sorry.
All right, while we're waiting for Maki to fix her slides, I hope everyone's doing, good, and I hope you're all feeling reflective. What about you, Jaden? How are you so far?
I've gained so much useful knowledge from the speakers, and I have learned volunteering is so important for international students and also help us to gain new experience and connect with a lot of international students and also industry aspects. How about you, Kim?
I've been actually waiting for this segment wherein we can learn the international student success stories, because I think as an international student, it's really kind of difficult because you leave whatever you have back in your home country to start another in a place where everything is unknown to you, where there could be cultural barriers, language barriers. So to my fellow international students here, hats off to all of you, and thanks for being an inspiration. And yeah.
Yes, and also yes, so we love to hearing your story, and please sharing your story on LinkedIn and Instagram. And remember to use the hashtag MISC2021 and at Mel Community and also at City of Melbourne. We loved to hearing your experience for the conference and loved hearing your story as well.
Exactly. And thank you, Jaden and Kim, for the wonderful work you do as international students. I think very often we look too far into the future and we think, oh my gosh, this is not for me. I can never get there. But what people forget is that these international student alumni who've built such successful careers for themselves, they started exactly where people like us, where people like you and I are right now. So just a very humble reminder to people that you might think that things are really far away, but it is possible for you. And with that, let's invite our last speaker for this session, Maki.
Hi again. Sorry for those tech bumps along the way. Very 2020. Thank you for helping me out with that. So hi again, my name is Makie, and I'm here to share my the lessons I've learned along my career journey. So first, I want to tell you a bit more about me. My name is Makie. I'm actually half Colombian, half Japanese, and I was born and raised in Colombia. I speak 3 languages, Spanish, English, and German, and I have a passion for sports, nutrition, and public health. So my career journey began when I was doing my industrial engineering degree, and I had to do an internship to finish that degree. And after many, many interviews, I got an internship at L'Oreal as a marketing analyst. And I was there for 6 months. I did a bit of community management there, and that was in 2012. So the only social media we used was Facebook. So I learned lots about that. And then I also helped them with events planning. And I also did a bit of market research, sorry. And then after 6 months there, I graduated and then started to work for a market research company called Meiko. And we helped big companies such as Kellogg's, Nestle, Procter & Gamble with their trade marketing issues. And we did lots of market research for them. And then after that, I worked at Falabella for 3 years. Falabella is the biggest retail company in South America. I worked in business intelligence, in marketing. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to study something different, that I wanted to start from almost here again. And I came here to Melbourne to study a Master of Environment at the University of Melbourne. And when I was studying that course, as part of my course, I had to do an internship as well. And that's how I got to work with B-Lab Australia and New Zealand, the nonprofit that certifies B Corps in Australia and New Zealand. And then after 1.5 years with them, I got my current job, as Executive Communications Advisor at Vic Health. So this is what my CV will tell you about my journey, right? A very linear, beautiful, structured journey. But I'm here today to tell you about my real career journey. Because along that path, I've run into some bumps, some things didn't go as expected, and those have been actually the best things that have happened to me, because I've learned so many things from that. I've gained so much experience, and that has actually gotten me where I am now. And so today I'm going to share with you the top 5 lessons that I've learned along the way. So the first one is on the importance of role models and mentors. So when I was working at Meiko, at the market research company I was telling you about, I had a definition of success that involved working with really big companies like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Kellogg's, earning lots of money, working long hours. And that was what success meant to me at the time. And that was what success meant to my boss as well. But after 2 years of working there, I realized that that wasn't the definition of success I wanted. And that actually that wasn't aligned with my boss's values. And it was a bit of a conflict because I wanted to do what I was doing, but it wasn't aligned with this person who was supposed to be my mentor, who was supposed to be my role model. And so after lots of thinking, I decided to quit that job. And that eventually led me to reflect on my definition of leadership. And so I understand that leadership means something different to everyone, and each of you can have a different definition of leadership. But to me, leadership is the ability and the power to inspire others to be the best version of themselves through being the best version of myself. And I am sharing this with you because I was feeling when I was at Mako that boss wasn't inspiring me to be the best version of myself. And that if I stayed there, I wasn't going to be the leader inspiring others to be the best version of themselves. And so that was a very important lesson in my life. And that definition has stayed with me throughout the years. And then got the second lesson to me. And it was the importance of taking breaks. So I was at Mako, I quit my job because it didn't align to my values, and I was left without a job for about 3 months. And at first, that was the scariest. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have an income. Everyone is working. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want to do. Am I doing something wrong? But then I realized that that was one of the best decisions I could make, because I got to reconnect with what I really liked, which is nutrition. I started a nutrition course and I was really enjoying it. And I also realized that I wanted to work in marketing again, that was what I really wanted. And so I started looking for jobs in marketing. And after about 3 or 4 months, I found my job at Falabella. And I was there for 3 years, and I started as a marketing analyst, and then I became a business intelligence engineer and eventually a marketing product manager. It was an amazing experience, wonderful 3 years. The team was amazing, but I always felt like something was missing, that job wasn't having a real purpose to me. And this is not to say that everyone has to have the same purpose, but to me, that job wasn't having the impact I wanted to have. Because I was feeling that I was just selling a bunch of things to a bunch of people who didn't really need them. And so that led me to lesson number 3, which is the importance of reflection. So taking the lesson number 2 of the importance of taking breaks, I took a break. And by break, I don't mean you have to quit. I just mean a break like one day or a weekend or a few days, but just a time to reconnect, a conscious time to reconnect with yourself and to think of what you really like and what you really want in your life. And so I took a break this time, and I went to the Pacific coast in Colombia, and it was a magical experience. As you can see in the photos, we encountered whale sharks. We also saw dolphins, and it was just the perfect environment to reconnect with myself and to reflect on what I really wanted. And that reflection got me to realize that I've always wanted to live close to the ocean. And to give you a bit of background, I grew up in Bogota, which is a city in the middle of the mountains. It's at 2,600 meters above sea level, so no ocean whatsoever around me. And so I decided that I really wanted to live close to the sea. That was what was missing in my life, and not only the sea, but nature, that I wanted to do something for the environment and for the things, the natural things around me. And so that's when I took the decision to come to Australia to study a Master of Environment, which was a really challenging decision for me, because that meant that I had to leave everything behind, that I had to quit my job, that I had to invest in this education. As all of you international students know, it's not cheap to study in Australia. But I then saw this quote, which really meant a lot to me at the time, that says, "I do not believe in taking the right decision. I take a decision and make it right." And with that quote in mind, I decided to come to Australia and to make that decision the right one. And it was the right one. I came here, I started studying, and during the first semester of uni, as part of my course, I had to do an internship as well. And during the first semester, during a class, a teacher mentioned B-Lab, Australia and New Zealand, and B Corps. And that really resonated with me because I did an internship or I volunteered with a B Corp back in Colombia a few years ago. And I really wanted to give it a try. And so I was like, yeah, B-Lab, I'll try to do my internship there. And so what I did was I just went into LinkedIn and I looked for everyone who worked at B-Lab Australia and New Zealand that was on LinkedIn. And I found 3 persons and I messaged all of them being like, hey, my name is Makie. I love what you do and I'm really interested in doing an internship with you or working with you. Are you free for a chat or a coffee, or do you want me to give you more information? And one of them replied and we had a coffee. And the rest is history because I got the internship and I worked with them for a year and a half. But this 4th lesson is all about networking. And I am going to be very strong on my messaging here because I find that that was one of the main things that helped me in Australia. And it's just making the most of these platforms. Technology is amazing nowadays, and LinkedIn is an amazing tool to connect with people around you, people that you admire, people that you know. And so I really encourage you to use it, to learn how to use LinkedIn, to improve your profile, to connect with people you know, to be really engaging, because it works. And as an international student, I didn't really know anyone here. And I'm sure many of you understand what it feels like not to have friends or family or anyone here. And LinkedIn was just a really great tool to find that internship, which then was a job. And they actually became like a family to me. The B-Lab crew is now my biggest support in Australia. So I highly encourage you to start using those networking tools. The next one, please. But then what happened? I was working at B-Lab, I was loving it, but at the same time I was studying, and I was finding that all these public health subjects that I was taking were really, really interesting, and I was feeling super passionate about them. And I really wanted to work in public health, but I just didn't know where to start. I felt that my experience wasn't enough. I didn't have experience in any of that. And I was just feeling really, really lost because I was like, if I don't have experience, how can I get a job? I was losing all hopes. But then lesson number 5 came, and it's the importance of asking questions. So I was feeling very overwhelmed, and I felt like I wasn't enough. I was suffering from imposter syndrome, and thinking that I wasn't going to get a job in public health. But then I started asking, and this connects to lesson number 4 as well, because I already had that network in public health because of my classes. I started connecting with some of the teachers, with some of the guest speakers. So I already knew people in the public health sector. And so what I did was that I started messaging them and emailing them and saying, hey, I admire you. This is my experience. I want to work in public health. I feel really passionate about it. Where do you think I could start? Who do you think I can talk to? What can I do? And after many emails, I got to Vic Health and I started a process there, and I got the job as an executive communications advisor. And I can just say that it is my dream job, and I am doing what I'm really passionate about. I'm using all of my previous experience, all of my marketing experience, all of my industrial engineering knowledge, working at this amazing health promotion agency. And what I want to say with this is I highly encourage you to dream of the job you want, because it exists and because you can make it come true. It exists. Whatever you want to do, go for it. And so in sum, my 5 key lessons or pieces of advice are: choose your role models very wisely. Take breaks to reconnect and to reflect. Reflect. Connect with others. Do networking. And lastly, ask questions. Ask lots of questions, because I'm sure that if you do all of this, you will find the job for you and the job you love. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Maki. And I can believe some of the changes you have made. And I really appreciate your story. I mean, it's a very long journey for you, but it's very inspiring. So thanks for that. Now, we would like to invite our audiences to ask questions to each of the 3 speakers. So pop your questions in the comment section as well. So if we can check the questions and maybe go with Looney first, because I think she has to go in a few minutes, if that's okay with everyone. So let's have a look with the questions. Let's go for the questions for Looney. So if you have your questions ready, please type it in. There you go. So this is a question from Sang, and this is to Looney. How did you overcome reverse culture shock when you went back to your hometown, if you have any?
Thank you. Thanks, Kimberly, and thanks, Sang. Reverse culture shock, this is an interesting one. I think one thing that's really important is really not to wear your Aussie hat on your back. What that means is that if you come with expectations, you're going to get disappointment. That's how I felt. Like, if I'm comparing Melbourne coffee to what I get back home, it's different. And everything's different, right? Because you don't get family when we're overseas, and obviously we get family when we're back home. So there's always the pros and cons of that. But for me, I really came home without expectations, because I felt that when it's just easier that way. You don't compare, and then you don't make people feel like, sometimes when you're wearing that hat, people might feel that you're stuck up in that sense. So try not to do that. Don't play the overseas card to your advantage, of course, but we just embrace what we have locally. And this is where, if this is where you grow up with, it's not that hard to get used to it again. And there's always things of Melbourne that reminds you there's still good coffee places around here. There's still people who connect, who came back from Melbourne. And what's really important is, I think, connecting with these people as well, because they'll be able to relate to some of that things. You just need to be able to pick and choose who you talk to certain topics with, and you don't bore people with all like your Australia stories if they don't really care. So I think that's a really good, a really important mindset to have as well.
Thanks for that, Looney.
No
On
worries.
to the next question. Jaden?
Yes. So I have a questions for Looney. So like I was wondering, so what advice you would give to international students in terms of cross-cultural communication?
Cross-cultural communication. I think what's really important here is trying to understand where someone comes from. Everyone is brought up differently. And I think being international, we understand that we are acting a certain way because of what we're used to. It's like how I think what I found really interesting when I went to Crown my first day. So in Crown, there's like staff cafeteria, yeah. And I remember I really wanted to head straight to the Asian section and get my laksa and rice and all that. But then all my colleagues, they are heading to the salad bar, and I'm like, oh my god, I really don't want salad, but I gotta like fit in. It's my first day, so I had that as well. But just understanding that, okay, some of them are vegan, some of them just never try Asian food, and that's an important thing to note. And food is more of a surface level, but it's a very good way to start communications because everyone loves food. And in the end, in Crown, I was known as you go to Luni if you want to know what's the good Asian food in town, in CBD. So there's that, but really understand why certain people are acting a certain way. Like some culture are just more straightforward. That's how they do things. Or Singaporeans, they just don't like small talk. So when you're on the phone with clients, you better just get down straight to the results. But then Australians love the small talk. You better learn a bit of, when I was, I watched AFL just because that when I talk with 30 or 40-year-olds male Australians in the workplace, I kind of want to be able to talk about Collingwood and Richmond and all that. So just understanding that culture and understand where they come from. And we try to speak from there. And also, I guess, be transparent about where you're coming from. Like, I'm thinking this way because da, 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 da. So trying to reach that gap, that's really important, I think.
Thanks for that, Looney. And I totally agree with you with that. When I first came here in Australia and I was with my friends, they're all getting salad, but I wanted rice. But I'm like, I'm not getting salad. I like rice, whatever.
For sure.
Anyway, another question. What are the difference between your working experience in Malaysia and Australia?
Really good. Interesting one. Definitely very different. I think I'm very lucky in the sense when I'm in Malaysia because I'm starting my own company, so I get to set my own culture. What I see that's very different when I go to my client's office or like when I talk to friends is that in Australia it's very much there's not really much hierarchy. You can join a team as an intern and you speak up in meetings, no problems. Whereas in Malaysia, people address their boss as boss and madam, which I really can't stand and can't get it. But I respect that. So when I'm with older people, I do that too. Hierarchy is one. Definitely the work culture is also another one where Australians are very good in terms of that. I love that they can be very chillax, but then they go to work on time and then they leave at 5:30 if they need to. So they have that very clear cut between like work and life balance, and they really prioritize family. Whereas in I think where I am, which is Kuching, is a lot better because it's a lot more of a chill culture as well. But in general, if you're talking about Malaysia or like KL or Singapore especially, that work-life boundaries is really off sometimes. And there's also that culture where like if your boss don't leave, you don't leave, which I really don't like. I feel like you don't need to wait. If you try to get things done on time, you be productive and be effective. And that's something I really like about the Aussie culture as well. But it's really just about like, for me at least, I'm lucky enough to be able to bring back what I like back to Malaysia and try to implement it here. And yeah, see how that goes as well. Going with the flow. How do we practice that in our life? I'm I guess I'm thankful to be quite a happy-go-lucky sort of person. And in a way, I think the pandemic forces a lot of us just to go with the flow, because when we're too rigid and then we have certain boxes that says that I need to tick this checkbox, then I'll be considered successful or whatever. It's very tough for us. And I think having this sort of checkbox during the pandemic, because a lot of things are not within our what we want, in the sense that I came back home, right? So that I can end long distance with my boyfriend. And then I'm here in Kuching and he's still an ocean away in Kuala Lumpur. And But there's that, and we just gotta like find our best way to work around it and see how it works in the end and try to find ways to get there. But rather than spending time just to be like, how do we get across this, just try to find an alternate route, and sometimes it's a better route, and we never know, because you never try, you never know anyway. Yeah.
So thanks for that. Maybe now we can move on with questions for Mackie.
So so you mentioned about reflection. Could you give us some tips to reflect, or the ways how you reflect and check in regularly?
Sure. So I think this one is really aligned to the other lesson about taking breaks. I find that those two go really well together. So when you take a break and like consciously take a break, and by this, I'm not saying that you have to quit, just take one day, one afternoon, one weekend to just relax, do what you like to do. If it's spending time outside, if it's a sport, if it's drawing, reading, listening to music, it could be different for each person, right? But just find that time to relax and do something you like, and then I guess it'll flow. But also you can do it consciously. You can start, if you like to write, you can start writing your thoughts. You can do some journaling each night. Take the time each night, take a break each night, and then do a bit of journaling. You can also, I reflect a lot when I'm on my bike. I love cycling, and that's how I reflect, and that's how the best ideas come to mind. So I guess it's different for each person, but I feel that the most important thing is to be in a state of relaxation. So once you feel that, and once you get there, the ideas and the thoughts will start to come.
Yes. So, how did you convince the one contact that you met that you are a worthy candidate for the internship? How do you make the most of the real opportunity? What do you think, Hope?
I'm so sorry. I was busy replying to a message in the chat. Could you please say that again?
Sure. How do you convince the one contact you met that you are a worthy candidate for the internship? How do you make the most of that real opportunity?
I'm very glad to answer this, but I think this was a question for Mackie, as I saw in the chat. Mackie, if you don't mind, I'm gonna answer it.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right, no problems. Specifically internships. How do I convince someone that I met that I'm worthy of an internship? Well, speaking of internships in general, that is, well, it's either something that that you applied for. Internships usually you have to apply for it, right? And you wouldn't be hired as an intern if you are not qualified mainly for that internship to begin with. And it's really, it relates back to my experiences as well with my presentation, that in every opportunity that I am given, you always have to bring your whole self. And not only that you are given a task to do, my mindset has always been that you have to take an extra step to prove yourself. Okay, so for example, you're given a task. What else can I do so I can actually take the requirements of me as a step further? So it actually shows my dedication to something that I put myself into. That's my 2 cents at that.
Yes, it was very useful. So, another question so what steps should we take to become well-rounded?
Great question. Thanks, Prerit. What steps should you take to become well-rounded? You would have seen, I'm not going to say to our delegates to follow exactly everything I did. Yeah, I did. My story is such because I chose it to be that way. I wanted to explore it myself because I enjoyed the variety of my different experiences. But what I would suggest for you, especially for our younger students, or if you're not as, I wouldn't say I was confident starting up. I just knew that I needed to get myself outside of my comfort zone. So to be well-rounded, let's start. I'm going to give you very practical tips. As a student, get involved with the activities in your university, whether that be in your projects, in your international student association. That's with being a student only. Remember, I mentioned earlier, do good in your studies, but get yourself experience the outside world as well. So if you have work experiences during, well, it's up to you. Like for example, with Mackie, yeah, she has a very straight. Her experience in terms of like work is not as much of like a zigzag as compared to mine, but we all have our own options and choices in life. So if I can encourage you to at least try different things, and I also mentioned in my presentation, have a feel of like what are the things that are working for you, what are not. For example, with me, I do a lot of volunteering activities so that I might try for a day or two, or if I enjoy that, I would do it again. If I don't, then I won't. A lot of the activities, for example, that I tried, nothing for me is a failure. Everything is a learning experience. So even if I don't quite enjoy that, or I would feel at that point in time that I did not really get so much value in it, I challenge myself to reframe my thinking and say, actually, what are the things that there's definitely something that I could have learned from that. And even if not, at least I've experienced it. That is my main takeaway. That's a very long-winded explanation to your question, Prerit, but the short answer to that is try many different things and find the ones that you are interested in and build it from there. Ooh, sorry, I can just see a question, but did you want to read it out?
Yes, so you asking one question about like, could you give us some tips to a good resume, please?
Absolutely, but I feel like that's going to be a separate session that we have to do. So I do that on the side. My first job, even before working at Rectera, I was with the University of Melbourne and helping students with resumes and cover letters. So as a passion project, I do that on the side, helping international students, because in our own home countries we have a different format of how we do our own resumes. Tips, just like a main ones, yeah. First is especially for you, Kim, but I'm sure that you've already crafted your own resume here anyway, being we're both Filipinos. In our home countries, for example, we used to put like photos. We put our, like our status, single, or what you're married, or your age, your date of birth. Those are not, you don't need to include that here in Australia. So learn how to craft a resume based on Australian standards. One thing that I'd like to mention, and I'm not going to get into details, of course, is learn how to write achievement statements. And that is, not putting in just descriptions of the tasks that you have done as part of any job, but learning how to, quantify results as well. And that is, you either articulate the skills that you've learned in every task that, as part of a certain role. I feel like that's not really making complete sense if I just describe it. I hope that I have a presentation that I could show that to you. But that is, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. What I would encourage the students, though, because I'm very passionate on this, is please connect with me if that is something that you would need help with. And if not me, we have a network of international student advocates who are more than willing to help international students with this.
Thanks for that, Hope. Now, the next question would be for Mackie. What was it like for you to change careers in terms of sector culture? I imagine culture in L'Oreal might be quite different from Vic Health, for example.
Oh, thanks, Anne. Yes, this is a good question. It was it continues to be very challenging, to be honest, because it's not only the change in terms of sector, but also country and language. So I was used to work in Spanish and with a very Latin American culture, and I came here to work in English and in a different sector. So it was a bit of a shock because the private sector or the retail sector is very fast paced. It's quite dynamic, aggressive. You're used to work long hours and to do everything for that company. Whereas I find that in the nonprofit and public sector, there's a bit more of a work-life balance, which is amazing, but it feels weird when you come from that world, right? So it it sounds funny, but it actually is still quite challenging for me to get used to that. But having said that, I have to admit that I've been very, very lucky to work with amazing people, have amazing role models and mentors after that first experience that I told you about. And what I also want to say here is that when you are applying to a company and when you are doing interviews, it's not only them who are doing an interview on you, but you are also checking and testing if you can work there. So that's also very important to keep in mind. Like the person who is interviewing you, if that person is going to be your boss or your colleague, you are doing an interview on them as well. And just be very conscious of that. If that aligns to your values, if they are the type of people you want to work with, because that will influence the culture. So this is a very long answer for this question, but I hope it worked.
Thanks for that, Maki. I think it's very important to understand how you can transition from two different sectors. So thanks for sharing that. Now we have another question for Hope, and this is from Prerit once again. How do you keep yourself dedicated and going when you don't end up liking a volunteering opportunity you opted for?
Very good question. Thanks, Prerit. Now, well, if it is something that you have already signed up for, then definitely you know that you have to deliver, right? And but again, at the back of your head, even before, I would not encourage you to quit, of course, especially if they're counting on that you signed up for that, so deliver what you signed up for. You have to, of course, motivate yourself, and while you are in the job, and again, goes back to my point earlier. Don't think of like if you're not liking it and you keep repeating that narrative in your head, you will feel that like that each and every time. So continue on and focus on the end goal. Like, why did I sign up for this to begin with? And even if it's not really meeting my expectations at the moment, what are the good things? Somehow, at least, I realize now this is actually not something that I want to do. So at least in the future, I'm not going to do it again. You wouldn't know that if you don't actually experience it, right? If you don't even try. So, and again, in the future, you can say that, oh, I've already tried that. Can I just say when I'm getting excited because I've had a lot of experiences like this. And if you are a person like me, I've had a lot of experiences that I may not have liked, and I would say in the end that I'm not going to do that anymore. But then when the opportunity arises again and they reach out to me and they say, do you want to do it again? I would always say yes again, because I want to give it a second shot and see if I would see and feel things differently. And sometimes it has worked to my favor. A lot of volunteering opportunities that we've had that I've done actually landed to paid gigs. So it may be, sometimes it's not you volunteer just for plain passion. Some of the volunteering activities that I did, even if I won't say that I am completely passionate with it, it has payment involved with it. So if it's like for earning purposes, for example, or gaining more contacts, see the value in the different many different things. So I hope that helps.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Jaden?
So we go ahead on the questions. How do I volunteer and engage at a time like this? Lockdown restriction, are online volunteering similar and worth our time?
Absolutely, Ashwarya. And in fact, what I would encourage you to do, like I can tell you, like to find these opportunities and Google, like volunteering opportunities yourself. But since that you are already here, this is such a wonderful opportunity because you are already in the right track. You are surrounded with very passionate international students who are international student leaders who could guide you. I think I read earlier in the comments that we have. Forgive me if I mix up your name. I'm Angie from MELD community. That she said that it's a good place to start volunteering. So there you go. Now you already have your first step. Now, what I would encourage you to think, firstly, before signing up for something, of course, is think about what are you volunteering for? What do you want to get out of it, right? If it is like me, like in the beginning, in my early days, that I don't really know exactly what I want, I just want to experience like many different things, then it's fine. Volunteer in many different fields, just so you would have, you would expand your worldview and experience many different things. But with other people, for example, if you are very clear that, for example, I really want to gain experience in this specific industry, so then that is when your approach becomes very targeted. Then you start searching for companies, or you start approaching people who work in those certain industries. What are the opportunities that are there? Just going back to your question, how do you volunteer and engage at a time like this? It's the same. Like, of course, we can't do a lot of face-to-face. We can't do face-to-face interactions, at least at the moment. But again, this is our world now as we speak, and everything has gone virtual. So we have to learn how to adapt. Again, with the committee, for example, of MELD, all of these are international student leaders who are volunteering their time. So after this session, why don't you get in touch with any of them, or in fact, connect with me, whoever you think might be helpful, and we'd be glad to give you tips. And if that is something that is of interest to you. If not, we will refer you to people who might know opportunities that you might be more keen in doing.
Thank you very much, Hope, for sharing that. Now, moving forward with Mackie once again, and this is a question from Eugene Tan. What is the importance of the STAR format in professional interviews?
Well, Eugene, thank you for your question. I actually found out about that format in Australia. I didn't know it back home, but I think it's a really useful format. I prepared my interview at Vic Health based on that format, and what I did was that I took an example for each selection criteria, and I converted it into a STAR example. And I think it's a great way to structure your answers and to really prove what you've done and the experience you have. So I would highly recommend using that format for your interviews.
Thanks for sharing that, Mackie.
Yes. So thank you so much to Hope, Looney, and Maggie. No wonder you guys were selected here and for the sessions called Success Stories.